All right, let's keep going. It's going to try to build this out to a fully functional web application before lunchtime. So one thing I want to talk about a little bit is we go take a look at our index.html page again. What we've done here in our link is that we've hard-coded in a URL. We're saying it's got to go to /polls to then a question ID. And it's not beyond the realm of possibility that our URL pattern could change. All we have to do is change URLs, and that URL and that link isn't going to work anymore. And that's a problem. That means that our application isn't scalable anymore, and it means that if we, change how our routes are organized, then everything is going to break. So Django has some helper methods to kind of help to make sure that doesn't happen. That's where this name equals detail comes in. So that means that this route now has a name. And even if we change how this route is actually, whether if we change it to /polls/question/1, the name of the route would still remain as detail. And to take advantage of that, instead of href equals /polls/question ID, we can do this instead. So with our percent brackets here, I'm going to use a method called URL that goes to polls detail, and we're going to give it the question.id as well. And that just tells this link, I want you to make a URL that points to this particular route and passes in question.id as this question ID argument. And it won't change how our thing renders. It'll still look exactly the same, or not. Uh-oh. Oh, I messed something up. So it says here, polls is not a registered namespace. So I told it to go to polls detail here, but I forgot to tell it what polls detail was. I do need to add something to my URLs file in order for this to work. I'm going to write something here called app name equals polls. Now they refresh the page. There we go. Now it's working. And the URL remains the same. But if I change the pattern of the URL, it'll still work. So that's cool and all, but now I actually want to make this more interactive. And kind of the primary way that your users are going to interact with your site is probably through forms. So I'm going to add something to polls/1/detail. What did I do wrong here? Oh, results. Wait, no? Ah, never mind. I didn't have one called detail. This is the detail page. So I'm going to add something to this page to allow users to this page to allow them to vote on these options. So I'm going to actually get rid of this for now. I'm going to add some more stuff. First, I want to make sure that if there are errors, I want to actually have a place to catch them. So I'm going to say, if there's something called error message, I want to render that error message. So I'm going to use a p tag. And I'm going to use a strong tag inside of that p tag to make it bold. And I'm going to display the error message here. And if. Next, I'm going to make my form. So I'm going to make a form. And for its action, I'm going to use one of those URL helpers we just did in our index.html. And I'm going to tell it to go to %URL. I'm going to tell it to go to polls vote with the question.id. And I'm going to specify that the method of this form is going to be a post method. Next, I'm going to add something right here called a Csrf token. And the Csrf token is essentially what allows Django to know that the form being submitted is a legitimate form. And we don't need to create the Csrf token ourselves. It's automatically generated by Django. But we do need to explicitly say that it's included in this form. So that's just making sure that the Csrf token exists. And then I'm going to make some buttons for my choices. So I'm going to do another for loop for choice in question.choices.all. I'm going to make an input. I'm going to make the type radio, so it's going to be a radio button. I'm going to give it a name of choice. And I want to give each of these inputs its own unique ID number. So I'm going to say ID equals, and this is a really cool trick that Django has. I'm going to use for loop dot counter. So it's automatically going to go 1, 2, 3, etc. So that each of these have its own unique ID number. I need to put this in quotes. And then finally, I'm going to give it a value, which is actually what's going to be what it's going to they're going to be picking. And the value is going to equal choice.id. So this is saying I'm making a radio button. I'm giving it a name called choice. And I'm saying, OK, if you select this one, it's going to send out this choice ID as the value. I'm going to add a label to this as well. And I'm going to say the label is for choice. Oops. Don't need that there. I can just say choice for loop dot counter. And it's going to be displaying the choice.choice text. I'm going to add a line break after that so that it does that. And then I'm going to end the for loop. And then finally, I'm going to put a submit button, type equals submit. The value is going to equal vote. So if I refresh the page, all right, we've got a problem. It's not displaying the labels for some reason. Let's see what it actually is trying to render here. I may have messed something up. And we can kind of see here, it does show us what happened. Like what this renders, it kind of translates it into HTML. And we actually have a hidden input, which has our Csrf token. We have our radio button. Type is radio, name equals choice, ID equals 1, value equals 1. So why didn't our label, so it says label for choice 1, label for choice 2, label for choice 3. Why isn't it showing up? Oh, did that wrong.
Did you want choice text or choice test?
Oh, thank you. There we go. So now I can select one of these. And I can vote, but nothing's really going to happen yet. It takes me to the vote page, but the vote page hasn't really done anything because I haven't told it what to do yet. So because even though I made a post request to that vote endpoint, I haven't really told it what to do when it gets that. So it just takes me to this vote page. So
the label for choice 1, 2, and 3, is that supposed to reference an ID?
Yeah, so each, these have, each of these choices has an ID of 1, 2, or 3. And I think the 4 here is mainly just for, I don't think it necessarily changes the functionality. It's mainly there just to make sure that it's very clear, this label belongs to this input, this label belongs to that input.
So the input ID doesn't have to be choice 1, it could just be 1?
Yeah, and the labels, the 4 in the label can be anything. Just doing choice 1 just makes it more clear, like this is for choice number 1.
Okay.
And this name here is kind of designed to, essentially when we submit this, we're going to get some data and we're going to say the choice is the value is going to be either 1, 2, or 3, depending on which one we pick. All right, so what I need to do now in order to make this actually work is I need to go back to views.py, and I need to tell the vote thing here that it has to, like, how to respond when it gets this form. So I'm going to get rid of this. And first I'm going to get the question that's being asked. So question equals question dot object, nope. Question dot objects dot get ID equals question ID. And actually, I'm going to try something here. I'm going to print out request. I want to see what happens when we actually vote. See if that works. So if I vote for the sky, hit vote. Okay, I've got some problems. The view polls.view.vote didn't return HTTP response object, returned none instead, so that broke our website. But let's see if it printed out our request before it broke. Okay, yeah, we got a WSGI request, post, polls1 vote. Great. So that shows that we got a post request like we thought we would. Now we actually, like, let's see if we can actually look at that and see, you know, if we can actually get to the data that's being sent up. So in this case, I'm going to look at request.post instead to take a look at what's actually being posted. So again, I'm going to vote. Oh. Okay, there we go. Vote for the sky, vote, breaks the site. If I go here, here's the actual request I get. It gives me a query dictionary, gives me the Csrf token, and it gives me choice is now 2. So that means that's how I can figure out, okay, when this post request goes through and comes here, I can figure out what actually got voted for. So now I'm going to actually make it so that this will actually work. So I'm going to set up a try except. So I'm going to say try selected choice equals question dot choices dot get. And I'm going to say that the primary key, PK, is going to equal request dot post choice. So that's I'm going to figure out, okay, is this choice that I'm selecting, does it exist? And then I'm going to say except. And I'm going to say if there's a key error, choice dot does not exist. And I also need to import the choice object now. So if I get this error, I'm going to return render with request, and I'm going to send it back to polls/detail.html. And for the data, I'm just going to, instead of saving it to a variable, I'm just going to write it out here. The question is still going to be question, but I'm also going to give it an error message. So error message is you didn't select a choice.
You know, you swapped your detailed HTML letters around.
Thank you. You didn't select choice. So this is for if somebody hits the vote button without selecting anything. So I wonder if this will work now as is. So refresh the page. If I hit vote, it re-renders the page with this new error message. So that's what happens if we don't select something. If we do select something, I'm going to have an else. I'm going to say selected choice.votes plus equals 1. Selected choice.save. And then what I need to figure out where to send them. So I'm actually going to I'm going to import another method up here from Django.http. I'm going to import something called HTTP response redirect, which allows me to, instead of re-rendering, it allows me to redirect, and which essentially means go back to another route. And generally speaking, when you have a successful post request, it's considered better form to redirect, and you should only re-render if there's an error. So I'm going to say down here, after I save the new data, I'm going to return a HTTP response redirect, and I'm going to tell it reverse polls results. I'm going to say args is going to equal a tuple with question.id. And so right now, so essentially what this tells it is, all right, if it's a valid choice, up the number of votes, save it, and then we're going to reverse course and then go to our results page, which is here, which at the moment is just still a simple HTTP response.
You use a colon, not a / in that reverse?
Yes, because I'm not telling it to go to the URL polls/results. I'm not telling it to go to a template. I'm telling it to go to I'm telling it to go to the route polls results. So app name polls, name is results. And if I try this out, I do the sky, vote. Uh-oh. Verse is not defined. Okay. I need to import that. So from Django.urls, I'm going to import reverse. Try that again. Just hacking away. Vote. Takes me to the response page. And I can see here, everything should work. So I got a post request to poll/vote. A 302 means I got redirected, which is what I want. And then it automatically made a GET request to /poll/1/results. That's what the reverse does for us, is it says, I want you to take a look over there and use this, and make a GET request to this route for us. So I know this is a lot of stuff. So what questions do you have?
Well, why is it called reverse? Like, I don't understand that part of it.
I don't know off the top of my head. I think, yeah, I don't know. I haven't really got an explanation for that. Tom, do you know why it's called reverse?
I just looked at it as it's reversing back to like a URL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because reverse, I think, stores like the previous URL you were on.
Yeah. And while I'm here, I also just remembered that the reason we want to do the redirect rather than using return render here is that way if somebody hits the back button, it won't post twice. I think that may be what the reverse is for, is I hit vote, it redirects me here. And then when I hit back, it's telling me don't post again. It's saying just go back to the previous location. So I think it's saying that, so if I'm making an educated guess here, the reverse is saying, if you go back from here, don't come to this route. Go to this route instead.
I've always understood it as reverse is building, it's a reverse resolution of the URL. So it's building your URL backwards by the namespace that you gave it. That way you don't have to hard code in polls/results or the ID. You don't have to put a pattern in there for it to match on. Yeah, so it's building from your URLs file. You know how you put polls as the namespace for the main entry point, and then in the other URLs file, you put a name of results, and then reverse goes and looks at these and then generates the URL path so that you can, if you looked at the return value of reverse, it would be HTTP, your domain name, and then it would have like the path to the URL, and it builds it based off the arguments you gave it. So if you have dynamically populated or URL parameters, right? If you have those in there, like the question ID is like a URL parameter, it can be any number. So you get, as long as you give it that argument, it can generate that full URL. So you can do a response redirect to the generated URL. That's my understanding of it.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
So while we're here, let's just get the results page working, just so we can kind of make this look nicer, and so that so it doesn't just take us to a, this plain text page. So results, instead of returning HTTP response. And you know what? I've noticed that I'm using question.objects.get a lot. So let's make that its own method. Like, get question. Takes in a question ID as an argument. Just say return question.objects.get ID equals question ID. So now we can just replace this with get question. Get question. And hit here again, question equals get question. Oops, that one was right. There you go, just make it a little cleaner. And then we can return render, request, go to polls/results.html. And we're going to give it this data object with question as the key and question as the data. And then we'll make a file here for results.html. And we'll just have this make sure we display the question text and how many votes each question has got. So each one, details about question, question.id, h2, question.question text. We have an unordered list here, so we can show all of our questions. Let's have a for loop for choice in question.choices.all. Have a list item. And have a display choice.choice text. And then show the votes. So choice.votes. And then we can do this cool little thing here where we can say vote and then have choice.votes pluralize. So that'll automatically pluralize it if it needs to be pluralized. Then we can end our for loop. End for. And then I'm going to have a link down here. This is going to take us back to the back to the question details page if we want to. So URL, polls, detail, question.id, vote again. So if I go back here and vote for not much. Uh-oh. For statements should have at least 4 words for choice, question.choices.all. But choice, for statements should have at least 4 words. Oh, I see what I did wrong. For choice in. There we go. There we go. Not much has 3 votes. The sky has 1 vote. Just hacking away has 1 vote. Vote again. Seriously? What? All right, what does it say? Using the URL confined, Django tried these pattern names, so it tried to take me to, this is the URL it tried to navigate me to. So I did something wrong. So %URL, polls detail. Oh, I didn't close out this. Let's try that one more time. Vote again. Refresh the page. Vote again. There we go. We vote for the sky. Now it's got 2 votes. And that right there is a very bare bones but functional full stack JavaScript Django application. All right. So what questions do you have? All right, I know this was a lot of information to go through, and it probably seems pretty daunting right now, and that's okay. A big part of learning Django is just learning the patterns, and that's best done through repetition. So this afternoon, before you do anything else, I recommend going through this whole tutorial I just did. It's on the curriculum page. Go through it on your own, just so you can get a figure out, get a handle on what each part does. And then after that, we've got a challenge for creating posts and comments. So you'll be making your own Django application that way. And as always, Gus, Meryl, Tom, and I are here to help you out in any way we can. So I will see you all later. I'm going to stop sharing and stop recording.